Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 1st meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Flossmoor. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being transmitted via Zoom for the convenience of those unable to attend the meeting in person. Public comment on agenda and non-agenda items will be after some recognitions and reappointments. And we ask that everyone who has signed up for public comment come forward when I call on them, and that they limit their public comment to 5 minutes, that they introduce themselves and address the board with the forum, and all of their comments be addressed to the public body and not directly a member of staff. There's a maximum public comment time of 30 minutes. Clerk will gavel. The time is 7:32. Would you please call the roll?
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Present.
Trustee Daggett.
Here.
Trustee Driscoll.
Here.
Trustee Lofton.
Here.
Trustee Mitros.
Here.
Trustee Mustafa.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Present. Thank you so much. We have a quorum. The next item, recognitions and appointments. There are actually 2 reappointments, and I'd like to get a motion to take both of them at the same time to save a little bit of time. Can I get a motion to approve the reappointment of Hillary Barker to the Green Commission and Jeff Stevenson to the Public Art Commission?
So moved. Second.
Thank you so much. Hillary Barker has been an active member of the Green Commission, and we appreciate her service. And Jeff Stevenson, it's been pretty fun to see how he has grown both personally and professionally, and also the incredible work that he's done for the village as a volunteer on the Art Commission. I'll start with Trustee Mitros. Any comments?
No, thank you for re-upping. We appreciate your hard work.
Trustee Mustafa.
Flossmoor is very fortunate to have, I'll say, august, well-known, prolific member of the commission continue to join us. And I thank all volunteers, and I'm very happy that we are, is it called recommissioning?
Reappointment. Yeah.
Okay, reappointing this commission.
Thank you. Trustee Bradley Scott.
Thank you again for your hard work that you've done on the commission thus far and coming back to join us again. Particularly for the Art Commission, I know that the board has a lot of input and directions for you so that we can see what we would like to see in our neighborhood. So we appreciate you providing your input and taking our feedback. And for the Green Commission, as we are in this global economy, staying green is not as easy as it seems. So the hard work that you're putting in here is appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
Yeah, so someone asked me at the 100-year celebration, it was actually a gentleman from the Chronicle, why Flossmoor is so amazing. And I said it's about the volunteers. And I think the best way to see that is our commissions, because it's volunteer positions. People are using their profession that they get paid well for, typically in those professions, and volunteering that time so that we can do the amazing things we do in the village. So the reappointment of both of these individuals, super happy about, really glad for re-upping and giving us a lot of free professionalism. So thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you. Trustee Driscoll.
I'm glad to see they both decided to reapply. That every proposal they bring before the board is not approved, but they still hang in there. Like their advice, give us their best advice, and we appreciate it. I really disagree. So we're really excited for those 2, excited to stay with it and see what they did.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
I too thank both individuals for continuing to support our missions. I'm especially impressed with Hillary in sustainable energy, having spent 37 years in the electric utility industry. I have appreciation and understand the need for sustainable energy. The whole process does a lot of good for us, our village, and the country. And Jeff, I've just become a fan of lately. He is just a marvelous individual, very bright in terms of art, and I've learned some things from him. So just welcome to Folk.
Thank you so much. If there are no other comments, Clerk Galvo, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to citizens present wishing to address the board. And first on the list is Warren Hagelberg. Welcome.
street, bridges, roads, highways, all kinds of goods and services. Here's an analysis of government spending along the lines we probably haven't thought about. It should be part of our national discussion. And there are fairly obvious reasons why that hasn't happened. I think you'll see the relevance and the importance once I go through it. To get into it is to say, when the government spends money, there are two things to think about. On what is it spending the money? Is it to repair our bridges, or buy an aircraft carrier, or build the medical system? These are questions about what the government is spending money on. But the next question is not asked, but ought to be. How is that money going to be used? How will the bridge be built? How will the bullets be made? How will the health supports be provided? To be dramatic, let me give you an example. Suppose the government, not only the federal government, but state governments and local governments as well, said that one of the things it was going to do was build roads in the area, and it was going to sign a contract with the slavery outfit. You know, those masters, with a bunch of slaves, and they're going to get a contract to build roads. And they will do it by putting their slaves, people they own, to that project. I can hear the screams of outrage, and rightly so. We don't want our government to be supporting slavery by giving contracts to slave masters. In fact, we do care about how the work is done, and the government decides to spend that. And what the government decides to spend. Here's another example. Suppose the government was going to build roads, decided that the way it wanted to have it done was by a cooperative, a group of people who together build a road. It would include design engineers, and earth moving specialists, and all the different people who needed the road built. But they would work as a cooperative, as a little community, one person, one vote, who decides everything collectively in a democratic way. In other words, it would be a worker co-op. That would be a completely different arrangement, wouldn't it? In the United States, and in most of the world, when contracts are given, they are given more or less to capitalist enterprises. Not given to slave masters, and not given to worker co-ops, but given to capitalists. And what does that mean? Owners of enterprises, boards of directors of corporations, they get the check from the government to pay for building a bridge, building a road, whatever it is. Clearly, when the government gives money to a capitalist corporation, which is what most government spending is about, it is pouring money into a particular social organization, capitalist structure of enterprises, because that's what we have. But that has consequences. Clearly, capitalist corporations, when they get that money from the government, will do with that money from the government just what they do with money from private people. We buy from them, we sign contracts with them. We as consumers, other businesses who buy from one another. And what does the corporation do with all of that revenue? Well, we know, because the corporations tell us. They maximize profits with that money, because that's what they're in business to do. They try to minimize the amount they give to working people by getting cheaper workers if they can, by automating, replacing workers with machines if they can, by moving production overseas where workers are cheaper to buy if they can. We know that's what they do because they've been doing it for as long as we can remember. You know what else they do? They try to give really nice high executive salaries. They pay dividends to their shareholders and capital gains by growing the company. And you know what else they do? This is the cute part. They take part of the money that comes in and use it to donate to the political parties and candidates who voted the money into their hands with the contract in the first place. Downright incestuous, isn't it? Simply put, when the government of the United States hands out contracts, it isn't just building a bridge or helping a hospital. It's also, here we go, reproducing capitalism, the inequalities. All those corporations will make sure to get as much money as possible to the shareholders and the top executives, and the least to their workers. That's why we have the gap between the rich, who are the first group, and the not so rich, who are the rest of us. We are reproducing, and the same politician who signs the Inflation Reduction Act, or the We Will Rebuild the Infrastructure of America Act, or whatever, the same politician who said, I'm concerned about inequality, by signing contracts with these corporations is making sure that that inequality is reproduced by those corporations who are the ones whose payment program produced it in the first place. All right. There's questions.
Thank you, Mr.
Of Flossmoor. Where is democracy in the governing and managing of Flossmoor? Where is government for the people, by the people, of the people in Flossmoor? A democracy, a government for the people, by the people, of the people does not exist in Flossmoor. It's only a delusion that those currently in power attempt to perpetuate and sustain by attempting to keep us from the truth behind what they do and why they do it. It's an abuse of power. An authoritarian form of government, an oligarchy, is defined by dictionary.com as a form of government in which all power is vested in a few persons or in a dominant class or clique, government by the few. This is what we currently have in Flossmoor. Our Flossmoor oligarchs fire Police Chief Jarrell Jones at will, against the wishes of the community, against the wishes of half of the board's trustees, and without sufficient justification, the village manager, mayor, along with 3 trustees hastily and stealthily terminate his employment. Police Chief Jones is exceptionally qualified for the position of police chief, leaving his position as Macomb's police chief to come to Flossmoor. He was lauded by Mayor Nelson as reported in the March 29, 2023 Homewood-Flossmoor Chronicle article. Nelson said Jones stood out among 18 candidates from across the country. His leadership and reputation throughout the state is at the highest level, she said. Now, our Flossmoor oligarchs who fired Jarrell Jones at will are going to appoint his replacement at will, a person, 1, who is not even eligible to be a sworn police officer in Illinois, and 2, who appears to have last acted in the capacity of police enforcement officer 11 years ago, 12 years as a police officer, followed by 5 years, 2008 to 2013 as a police captain, and retiring in 2013. Given this, our Flossmoor oligarchs create a new position at will so that they can appoint him at will. The village manager writes, this position has all of the current responsibilities of police chief position, with the exception that the incumbent will not be able to exercise police powers. They are appointing a person who hasn't worked in police enforcement for the last 11 years, who is ineligible to be a sworn police officer in Illinois, and who cannot personally perform any duties of a sworn officer. They are appointing such a person to be in charge of the direct and indirect supervision of all police department personnel, including the acting police chief. Such action is simply ludicrous and a direct insult and disrespect to all of our Flossmoor police enforcement officers. Cabal, as defined by Wikipedia. A cabal is a group of people who are united in some close design, usually to promote their private views or interests, usually without the knowledge of those who are outside their group. This is what we currently have in Flossmoor, a government governed and managed by a cabal. Citizens of Flossmoor, awake and act. Become informed, get engaged, and vote on April 1st, 2025. Change Flossmoor from a government by the few, for the few, of the few, to a government by the people, for the people, of the people. I'd like to leave you with this quote. The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. And this is a quote by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. This has not happened in a vacuum, and there's been a lot of input from throughout the village. And I appreciate your comments and the opportunity for you to hear more about that later on in the meeting. Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Britt Gordon. Next, welcome to Ms. Ashley Gibbons.
Hello, I am here to express my concerns about the handling of the detention basin project near Kelly Hill Elementary School. The Village of Flossmoor failed to secure the necessary easement for the detention basin project before commencing construction. Starting construction without proper authorization demonstrates a disregard for citizens having equal transparency and input and being able to be involved in the project. This oversight has significantly undermined the trust and confidence of the community and the village's ability to manage such projects responsibly. Residents expect transparency and adherence to legal procedures, especially for projects that impact public spaces and safety. The detention basin, with its significant size and depth, poses serious safety risks to the children who use the nearby playground and school grounds. The project is the construction should not start earlier than 7 a.m. Monday through Sunday. However, the construction has generally started around 5 a.m. through 6 a.m. Even though residents have made the village aware that the construction project has started before its agreed upon start time. I am asking for transparency and accountability, just to kind of have a clear understanding from the village as to how can things be done in the future to not have this occur again. Some of my questions include, can you explain the standard process for approving and securing easements for construction projects within the village of Flossmoor? Why was this process not followed for the detention basin project? Who is responsible for ensuring that all necessary approvals and easements are in place before construction begins on a project of this magnitude? And what steps are being taken to hold those responsible accountable for this oversight? I would like to also know what immediate actions will the village take to rectify the situation and ensure that the project complies with all legal and zoning requirements? And how will the village prevent such oversights from occurring in future projects? I would also like to know why were residents not adequately informed or consulted about the project and its potential impacts before construction began? And what measures will the village implement to improve community engagement and transparency in future projects? I urge the village to address these issues promptly and take the necessary steps to restore community trust. Ensuring the safety and well-being of our children and preserving the integrity of our community should be the top priority. I request that the village provide a detailed follow-up on the actions taken to resolve these issues and prevent similar occurrences in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. I'd just like those attorney board to comment on the easement real
Right,
quickly.
the school district approved our use of the property April 8th, 2024, before any construction was commenced. With regard to beginning at 5:30 in the morning, we'll have to double check on that, because that, as you point out, is contrary to village ordinance, and to the best of our knowledge, we were not aware of that. And so with that, we shall make sure that the ordinances are followed.
I actually personally feel it calls about 6:45 starts. One for sure that I know of, maybe two. If there's an issue with that, John Bronke, he's our Director of Public Works. He should be sitting in the back. He's the person to contact, to shoot an email to. Definitely, it should not be starting before 7 a.m. Next, Heidi Cuesta. Ms. Heidi Cuesta, welcome.
Greetings, I'm Heidi Cuesta. I've been here a resident since 1993, so in Heatherville. I came here also to talk about the issue of the easement approval, and I did get a document from a FOIA request that was dated May 24th for a grant proposal from the MWRD, which you have been, you requested $1 million. And one thing I do know about is grant proposals. proposals. I do that at the University of Chicago for many, many years. In this proposal, which was completed and signed off, I guess, by John Ruggie, it asks about additional site conditions. In that, he says the village has an easement in hand for the property. In this proposal, it's for phase 4, which is, I believe, from Flossmoor right up down to the Maryland junction. In another section, he says, an IGA with the school district that allows construction of the detention basin has been approved. It asks if any other easements are needed. The answer is no. Again, he says an IGA with the school district that would allow the basin to be dug has already been approved. The meeting minutes from your board are attached, was approved. In that, the IGA agreement on the top, it does indicate that the agreement is not valid until it's recorded.
The agreement is,
That's okay, I mean, that's fine, I'm just gonna say one more thing. So that's what it indicates on the document, whether that's true, I don't know. But in the agenda today, right, there's an email from John to the village manager, which essentially says, in order for the project to move forward, the village asked the school district 161 for the temporary construction and permanent drainage easements. Okay, so obviously it says to be executed, they're asking for approval from the village board today, correct? In this meeting. So I guess I'm a little confused.
the reality is that the school board approved our use of the property April 8th. The reality is the agreement that the school board has in fact approved it, we're on their land. We are approving it tonight because we awaited the award of the contract because we certainly were not going to encumber the school property with the recommendation. If those bids came in over budget, out of sword, and accurately. So we have held up simply not to burden the school's property until we were assured, as you know now, because it has begun construction. With regard to the validity of the contracts are valid. They are not enforceable against property unless recorded. Doesn't mean the agreements aren't valid.
Okay.
So we chose to do it in a way that we believe was more protective of the rights of the school district in their own property. Yet we did not go onto their property without they having given us their approval.
But it's not technically executed, right? Until you sign off on it? I know we're not supposed to answer questions. So
It won't be technically enforceable against the land. It's a lien against the land until we report it. Which again, we postponed out of courtesy in case anything went wrong. We did not want to burden the school district.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Next, Kevin Dorsey. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. It's been a while since I stood here. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad. It's been several months since I last addressed the board, and although I've been silent, I've remained observant and hopeful to observe anything which to me resembled any signs of fair and impartial leadership. Leadership is something I know a little bit about. I normally don't talk about my past, but just to qualify the statements that I'm about to make. It's been almost 30 years, I'm a retired Navy Command Master Chief. I've led troops both in combat and non-combat scenarios. I hold a master's in organizational development, a master's in business administration, and a doctorate in organizational development. I currently manage over $1 billion budget for the University of so I know a little bit about leadership and administration. But here we clearly have a board which is divided. And based on that divide, important decisions are made without appropriate vote or consideration of all board members, while applying a deaf ear to the majority residents of Flossmoor. Much like the nation's Supreme Court, when the deck is stacked in your favor, the majority cardholders can play their hand freely without priority consideration of their own agenda. However, unlike the Supreme Court appointment, this board does not come with a lifelong term. I personally, this is not a personal attack, this is me talking about leadership. I have lost faith in the leadership of this board makeup. So much so that I can't pretend to provide my support any longer, which was a considerable factor to resign from my appointment as Community Relations Commissioner. Residents, if you want change in this administration, like no difference in any other administration, if you want change, vote. And not only for the next mayor, but vote for change in your village trustees as well. This system is broken. And sometimes it's just time for change. We have to know that it's time. I think the time is now. I want to say thank you, Attorney Orr, for your immediate feedback to the questions. I think that form actually does help to provide knowledge to the residents. Thank you very much.
I wrote current policy.
All right. Sometimes breaking the rules is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. He's waiting. Mr. Jadkins.
Sorry, I'm just signing.
Thank you so much. We have time for one or two more comments. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to make a public comment?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Thank you so much. He's waiting. Mr. Jadkins.
Sorry, I was just signing.
Thank you so much. We have time for one or two more comments. Is there anybody from the audience who would like to make a public comment? Thank you so much for everybody who spoke. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Thank you so much. Is there anything anyone would like to have pulled off?
I'd like to pull off number 4 and number 5.
Is there anything else anybody would like to have pulled off? All right, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items number 3 and number 6?
Second.
Thank you so much. Clerk Logano, please call the roll.
Trustee Day. Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Ravishaw.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the presentation of the bills for approval and payment as approved by the Finance Committee, July 1st, 2024?
So moved.
Thank you so much. I'll start with Trustee Bradley Scott since you requested this item be pulled up. What is your question?
My question is regarding on page 4, the Carlisle Architect and Historic Building Survey. Can you provide some additional information on that? A resident had a question specifically on that.
What was the question specific?
What did the Historic Building Survey consist of?
So this is, Trustee Bradley Scott, this is an ongoing project. There was the history project that was actually a couple of years old at this point, looking at historic buildings and doing a historic survey. This involved residents submitting photos during the pandemic of different historic homes that turning it over to this Carlisle group, which specializes in historic homes and historic home districts. We were making progress to it little by little throughout the pandemic, and we are trying to finish up that project and be able to provide a finished product next GIS kind of format, which you'll see placards of the history of different historic homes, process for residents to see homes for the future. So that was a project from 2019, 20, around that time period. So it's been a couple of years, but that's what that's related to.
So it's meant to highlight our real estate options. We just have an incredible collection of homes to choose from.
Okay, just to add additional questions to that, was this the only line item to that company? This is the first time that they've been paid since 2000?
No, there's been small little check-ins and different things they've submitted as far as recommendations, as far as how to move forward with this project, some of the historic information they have related to architect's files, those different things. So it's been, this is not the first time we've had a building from that but it's still within budget that was carried over from year to year related to this project.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions about the bills?
Sorry, I have one. On page 38, regarding the purchase of 1439 North Crescent, and I understand this is related to the basin project. So it was explained before, so I'm asking for an explanation that part of which may have already been explained to the board. I remember the comment that it was an intergovernmental transfer. Do I remember correctly?
Yes, it was transferred pursuant to the local government transfer act.
So please add, if you would, some details about dollars showing here on these bills. And as an intergovernmental transfer, it just surprised me to see the money, because now I realize I do not understand the explanation.
Well, we didn't have to pay transfer fees, but we did have to ensure good title. And so there's a title policy that was issued by the school district, which we agreed to pay. And there's an owner policy, so that we are guaranteed we now own the property and have full rights to the property. And that's always a part of the transaction. So those are strictly reclamation charges and title charges.
429,000.
425 was the purchase of the property, and $4,000 for all of the title charges.
So who or what agency gets the money? Park district?
No, the park district got the money for the purchase of the land, and Chicago Title got the other $4,000.
All right, so in the chart that John did was the cost of the project. Is this amount of money added to the total cost of the project?
Yes, it was included.
Yes, correct. It was in that chart. The actual cost of 429 change.
Okay, I don't have it with me, so okay. That's good. So then we can see it added on to the total. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much. Clerk Gavel, would you please call the roll on consent agenda item number 4?
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Dagger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the consideration of an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement by and between the Village of Flossmoor, Illinois, and the Board of Education of School District Number 161, Cook County, Illinois, for the Heather Hill Elementary School Detention Basin Project?
So moved.
Thank you so much. I'll ask Trustee Bradley Scott to start, since this is the item that you requested me to follow.
Yes. The question is, as it pertains to the intergovernmental agreement and the dates that the resident brought up, I heard Attorney Orr's comments in terms of the time frame. We've had a couple of meetings since that date, and the work had begun prior to that. So can you explain a little bit more detail as to why we're just talking about it in this meeting?
Yeah, I can probably help with that. So obviously in the memo, it's stated, Attorney Orr mentioned, this was approved by the school district on April 8th. The contract for the basin was approved, I believe, in the first meeting in June. We started construction about 5-6 days after that, the following week, before the next board meeting. And we were still waiting for the school district to get the signatures from the president and secretary. It took about a week and a half to get that done. So we weren't ready for the second meeting in June, which is why we're here in the first meeting in July. It took time to get the signatures from the school district process. They obviously, just like our board, we had to wait till the trustees act to get to the village hall to sign things. That was the reason. So we brought that over that week before the construction actually started. We waited for it that long for the school district.
So the fences going up and so forth were not considered part of the construction?
It is. The fence is up now as a temporary construction fence. That was part of the construction plan. And that was in place, and that was done first before the construction. It was part of the beginning.
Right. It was done in May.
No, it was not. It was done the first week of June. We didn't get approval until probably with the date June 3rd. So, yeah, we got reports we can share with you to show you actual construction reports, daily reports. So,
Please, yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions about item number 5? Seeing none, clerk will gavel, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitro. Trustee Mustafa. Trustee Bradley Scott. Trustee Daggett. Trustee Driscoll. Motion passes.
Thank you so much. We do not have any formal reports of committees and or commissions today, but I do want to give a shout out to Green Commission, who cleaned up the day after our last board meeting for the Juneteenth parade. They did a great job. So thank you, everybody, and some of our volunteers in the back who also showed up to help. Thank you so much. Everything was great. Our auction is happening now. Go on flossmoor.org to check it out. Also, there is a pop-up sculpture tour the following Saturday, July 13th. More information is on our website for that as well. So looking forward to those events. I'm going to move on now to action item number 7. Can I get a motion to approve the consideration of the position of the Director of Public Service?
So moved.
Thank you so much. I first want to thank Acting Chief Taylor and Commander Filkins for their support and assistance in managing the police department in the past few months. They are extremely valuable members of our team, and we truly appreciate their willingness to take on additional responsibilities to keep Flossmoor safe. The police chief is one of the most important positions here in the village, and we take the responsibility of filling that role with the right candidate very seriously. And as a reminder of village code, the police chief is a mayoral appointment made with the advice and consent of the village board. As with all village employees, this position reports to and is supervised by the village manager. Since March, the village board and manager and I have had numerous discussions about how best to fill this role. And after thoughtful review, the decision has been made to create a Director of Public Services position to be filled by a candidate with decades of law enforcement leadership and years of security and municipal management experience. The Director of Public Services will have all of the responsibilities of the current Chief of Police position, with the exception that the Director will not be a sworn officer due to the necessity of the candidate's credentials to be transferred and accepted by the state of Illinois. The position will also serve as the Village Emergency Management Coordinator of the village's emergency management agency, responsible for the training and deployment of the village's emergency operations plan and also incident action plans for our events. The candidate, the village manager, Wachtel, plans to hire for this director position, who I later plan to appoint as police chief, has, again, decades of law enforcement experience within the state of California. in addition to security and municipal management experience here in Illinois. To become a sworn police chief in the state of Illinois, he will be undergoing the out-of-state reciprocity process immediately, which typically takes about 6 months to complete. Following the vote tonight, Village Manager Wachtel will hire this candidate as the Director of Public Police Services, and again, I am planning to then appoint him as police chief as soon as his credentials are fully recognized here in the state of Illinois. The creation of this process, the selection of the individual to fill it, and my intent to appoint him eventually as police chief has been vetted with our board and with legal counsel. And we want to be clear on our intentions here with the public. And now I invite Village Manager Wachtel to introduce you to Mr. Carl Estelle.
Thank you, Mayor. Flossmoor resident Carl Estelle, who is with us here tonight, applied for the police chief position when it was open in 2022. As we evaluated his candidacy, we had our sights on a long-term appointment, and we did not advance him. Knowing his tenure would be shorter than that, we would have to work with the training and standards boards on his reciprocity. With the current vacancy in the police chief position, we took another look at Carl and found that his experience, leadership, management skills, and community building qualities all demonstrated that he is the right person to lead the Flossmoor Police Department. Mr. Estelle has decades of progressive experience in law enforcement, community policing, and collaborative public safety practices. His experience includes several years as an investigator and as a supervisor of investigations. Specifically, he served 6 years as captain of police for the city of East Palo Alto, California, where he helped dramatically reduce crime and acts of violence while effectively addressing risk management issues and enhancing the police department's use of technology. Prior to that, he had 11 years as a special agent supervisor for the California Department of Justice, where he was commander of the security detail for the state's attorney general, as well as the task force commander responsible for directing criminal investigations utilizing a multi-jurisdictional team of 25 law enforcement agents. Depending on the investigation, he has supervised anywhere from 15 to 200 local, state, and federal law enforcement officers. His law enforcement career began as a police officer for the city of Oakland, California, where he spent more than a decade patrolling neighborhoods and working in the special duty unit with the Drug Enforcement Agency Task Force, dismantling drug trafficking organizations. In 2017, Mr. Estelle moved with his family to Flossmoor. He served as the Assistant Director of Security at Kennedy King College in Chicago, supervising 130 employees from 2017 through 2019 until he was promoted to the position of Director of Security Operations and Compliance for the City Colleges of Chicago Safety and Security Department. For City Colleges, Estelle managed security for 7 campuses and 5 satellite locations. In 2020, he accepted the position of City Administrator for Country Club Hills, where he manages city services for 16,000 residents. In his previous positions, Estelle was known as a community builder. He has been able to create trusted partnerships with members of the community as he developed and outlined new strategies, improving the quality of life for those he served. I am requesting that the board authorize the position of the Director of Police Services with our current salary range for department directors. I plan to hire Flossmoor resident Carl Estelle to this position, and once he receives his out-of-state reciprocity, we will return to the board and the mayor will look to appoint him as a police chief.
Thank you so much, Village Manager. I'll start with Trustee Mustafa. Any questions or comments about the position of Director of Police Services?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Estelle, thank you for coming this evening. Due to the nature of the way this meeting has been structured, I would have preferred if it had been a 2-part meeting. The first part would have been to approve your job, talk about the budget, and how we're adding a new line item and creating a new position. Vetting that description completely without you here, because that part does not personally pertain to you. Carl Estelle is a good man. When we spoke with him in April, he was professional, you were candid. You expressed compassion and passion for law enforcement as well as this community, your community. Those traits are admirable and beneficial for the position of Chief of Police. You presented many years in law enforcement as well as many accomplishments. So I thank you for meeting with us, and again, many of my comments are independent and would have been presented in a separate session. We're here tonight reviewing a newly created job description for Mr. Estelle, but my comments pertain to the description regardless of the candidate who would have filled it. We're hearing details of your employment. The description was officially provided to trustees on Friday, June 28th. I am concerned that we have not had at least one more executive session or a special meeting to discuss any questions about the description and how this description compares to the one for Chief of Police. The new job description seems to contradict municipal code. The email from the village manager, Bridget Wachtel, concerns me. Director of Police Services has all of the current responsibilities of the police chief position, with the exception that the incumbent will not be able to exercise police powers. For 6 months or longer, Mr. Estelle will not be able to carry a gun or a badge, or for example, maneuver a police vehicle to block traffic at a crime scene. He will not legally be able to exercise police powers. As a civilian employee, he cannot perform any duties of a sworn officer. Are we creating a potential safety concern because residents, officers, and command staff may not immediately be certain about where Acting Chief Taylor's responsibilities begin and Mr. Estelle's end? Municipal Code 29-1-4 gives complete responsibility to the police chief as follows. And as acting chief, Deputy Chief Taylor is the chief. He, the police chief, shall be responsible for the performance by the police department of all its functions according to municipal code. And all persons who are members of the department shall serve subject to the orders of the chief of police. So should not the acting chief report directly to Bridget Wachtel as municipal code dictates? And should not a civilian employee report directly to Bridget Wachtel, since Bridget Wachtel is the immediate manager of the police chief, and since Deputy Chief Taylor is the acting police chief? As acting chief, how can we change provisions of the municipal code with a new job description? I'm concerned that we are creating confusion for Flossmoor Police Department as well as our community. Has the union responded about any possible concerns to assure there are no issues with the new reporting structure and assignment of duties for Acting Chief Taylor? Additionally, what impact might this new position have on Commander Philpott, who works closely with Acting Chief Deputy Chief Taylor as part of the command staff? Village Manager Wachtel wants the board to authorize a new position with the same salary range as for department directors. We haven't discussed the amount of money this new position will be paid. A range is not an amount. Mr. Estelle is not yet qualified, though we expect that he will be. He's not yet qualified to be Chief of Police, and the board has not discussed a salary that reflects the missing Illinois credentials. I'm concerned that we are not proposing a lower salary during the credentialing process. Flossmoor must employ him before that credentialing process can start. However, the board has not approved a new position in the current budget. It is unlawful for us to just shift money from a police position to a civilian position that didn't exist when we approved this year's budget. We have missed part of the requisite process to create a new position. According to Municipal Code 25-1-1, the board must first identify funds for the position, i.e. a salary amount, and then we must by 2/3 vote add the position. We haven't changed the budget yet. It could take 6 months or longer to meet the minimum requirements to become a sworn officer. Mr. Estelle is being hired as a civilian in the meantime to expand work which is now being done by police and fire. If he completes the requisite 118 hours of online training, passes a 200-question test, and performs well on the firing range, he will move to police chief. What will happen to any work he begins during the 6 months or more while he is working as a civilian? Will the newly created Village Emergency Management Agency be dismantled? Are we creating possible confusion by creating an agency and then moving Mr. Estelle out of his role in less than a year? Will the work need to be transferred back to the fire department? I don't believe the board has clarity about this. What is our contingency plan if Mr. Estelle is unable to satisfy all credentialing requirements? Administration believes that he will. I certainly hope he will. But what is our plan if he does not? Will he be required to enter the police academy for 2.5 months of training? Will interim Chief Taylor be asked to continue as interim chief? I don't believe the board has clarity about this either. I'm concerned that the village has already announced that Mr. Carl Estelle will be offered employment because the board is expected to approve his position this evening. Why are we presenting to residents, to the public, that the decision has already been made? Were at least 3 trustees already contacted about their votes? I wasn't. While the Village of Flossmoor has been fiscally responsible, we certainly don't have money to waste. We spent $10,000 from the police budget so that top candidates for chief could participate in the assessment center. Taylor, Filkins, Jones, and another candidate were assessed. Why are we not accepting the results of that assessment after paying many thousands of dollars? Why are we providing training above what the state of Illinois requires to put Flossmoor Police Department members in a position to lead and then not promoting them? I'm concerned about the demoralizing and confusing impact this could have. I'm concerned about again causing instability among officers. I'm concerned that Flossmoor Police once again see no internal promotions to chief or to the command level. I'm also concerned that objective performance expectations have not been documented. More than one board member has asked for clear performance measures. Resident Pam Jackson, an experienced and well-respected HR professional, has urged administration to examine and implement changes to our HR function. Now is a good time to do this, including a 360 review. But the benefit will be for the police department and all other departments. In March of 2018, 10 shared principles were adopted by the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and the NAACP. Flossmoor joined 150 Illinois law enforcement agencies to commit to the principles. The principles include the foundational value of treating all persons with dignity and respect. Let us treat our village employees and our residents with dignity and respect. Let us not only demonstrate transparency, but justice in all village matters. Until the questions and concerns I have posed can be finally addressed, including any union concerns and changes to the budget, I move to table the consideration of the position of Director of Police Services. I believe it would be a dereliction of our duties as trustees to do otherwise.
Hello? Oh, okay. The board gave village manager Wachtel unanimous consent to create this position and move forward with this hire back in April. And amongst other things, this is one of the things that village manager Wachtel has been working on. It has been quite an involved process with a lot of feedback and meetings and interviews and investigations. And I wish that we would have gotten your comments prior to today, but I'm going to try to answer some of these. Village Attorney Orr, would you please address the no chance to discuss this? I'm sorry, Trustee Mustafa asked to discuss this in closed session, this position.
You can't go into executive session unless you're talking about the specific appointment of a specific person. So you couldn't have gone in to discuss creating a position.
Could we have gone into closed session once the job description was written and it was known that Mr. Estelle was the candidate to be considered?
The job description is of a department head, and according to our code, all employment approvals of any member of the staff is strictly through the manager. It's in the chapter on manager powers. I can pull it out and get it to you. And so that is the reason.
So according to, in reference to my questions about the budget, how would that have been properly handled to add this position as a line item?
I don't think this is an added position as a line item that requires a budget amendment because we had budgeted for the same number of positions in the department.
There's a table at the back of the budget that has to be formally changed if we add a position. Anne can possibly comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's a table at the back of the budget that lists all of the full-time and part-time positions. And it will have to be amended for this position. So,
And not to, again, I find it's unfortunate that this is the forum. It's not my style to put this in the wrong order. I really ask of you to provide as much advice as needed regarding the situation. Could you help us with that?
you mean
Regarding
on the budget?
Regarding adding this new position.
So if we, depending on what the salary range is, since we're not filling since technically the police position, the police chief position is still vacant, it would be a wash in salary.
Okay, a wash in salary is different than a new job title and a new job description.
So the new job title would simply just be added to the full-time chart in the back of the budget in the police section, and the police chief position would still be there, it just would remain vacant.
Yes, and we have not done that right, correct?
Correct, we have not done that.
Thank you.
And that process can happen independently of this discussion here this evening. It's not uncommon for us to bring budget amendments or budget changes independent of discussions of actual agenda items themselves. That could happen at a future meeting.
It would not be appropriate for me to speak details of what we've discussed in the executive session, so I will say this in as summary a manner as possible. Stop me if I go too far. When you mentioned that this was approved by the board, at the time that conversation occurred, there were no details, there was no definition of what the credentialing process would be. We still had a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of confirmation. So the going forward was the due diligence and the fine tuning of that process. It was not go forward, hire a person. It was, yes, find out all the answers so we have sufficient information to make a decision, and that's my understanding.
And I have kept the board updated along the way.
Thank you. Trustee Bradley Scott.
for coming this evening. And I think it is very honorable for someone to work in the community that they live, to apply for a job in the community in which they live. It can be a daunting task. And for one to put their hat in the ring to do so, I think that is very admirable. I am going to have a two-part reflection on this as well, because it was my understanding when we voted to proceed with the development of this position that we were in discovery to understand what the job description would look like, and we would come back together and talk about any gaps so that we would all be on the same page. And so, Mr. Estelle, some of my comments are not directed to you as an individual, but in terms of our process and how we arrived here. Because the job description created was to satisfy the chief of police role, ultimately was created without the board approval on all of the details of what that would encompass. The direction was agreed upon in our May special meeting and executive board meetings that we spoke to the appointment of specific individuals satisfying this role and was supposed to be provided to the board beyond announcing an appointment, unlike the June 14th email to the board that expressed other intentions. As it pertains to municipalities in Illinois and how new positions are created, we had a discussion that was brought to the board by Mr. Elston a few months ago that talked about having the police chiefs and fire commission weigh in on our non-chief roles. Because this role is going to be appointed later on, it is my understanding that it doesn't currently fit as one of those positions that our own commission would not have had an opportunity to weigh in on. So in terms of our ordinance and passage of the resolution by any municipal code or municipal governing body, this formal legislation of action in terms of creating new positions and the authority, in my opinion, hasn't been documented. Before finalizing the addition of any new positions, we should have had an opportunity as a board to vote on the terms, the language, and all of the budgetary items before coming to the same meeting where Mr. Estelle is being appointed. If we can talk further about the sworn police officer duties and the overlapping or lack thereof duties that he will not be able to perform, are we able to outline the legal aspect of the community interpretation of what he can and cannot do? I think that the aspects of authority that is provided to this role is going to be very overlapping, and since we have a sworn officers, a deficit in the sworn officers department, how long will it be before we're able to account for the heavy management side of things? So we have a number of this role, the acting chief's role, the command role. Everybody has their positions in terms of what they're set out to do, and have we recalibrated what these job duties are. Essentially what we have said is that from the village manager's office is that the current police staff doesn't meet the criteria to become the police chief here in Flossmoor, but they have been acting police chiefs for several months during the absence of a police chief in 2023 and in 2024 with the absence of having a police chief. So what are we building for our command staff, when we provide information where we are saying that we don't have trust in how they perform. Part of the job description that was provided talks about the position requirements and additional desirable qualifications. Some of the items listed in the desirable qualifications are among the ranks that we have sent our police officers through. Should we reevaluate this list? Are we spending our funding inappropriately where we don't have confidence in the type of training that we pay for them to have? Are we getting what we pay for in terms of what we're investing in our officers? Because this information is listed as desirable qualifications and outcomes, are we contradicting what we believe and what we practice? Part of the requirements that we were asking for the village manager's office to provide is, if not this, then what? And those qualifications were supposed to speak to the opportunity areas that our command staff would have should they, in order to qualify to someone's perception of what they should be. And it was outlined as being part of the manager, part of mentorship that any manager would have. And so we've outlined certain things as a board that we were requiring and requesting be outlined in our job description, but the job description does not go into those details. Furthermore, the job duties in the Director of Police Services and EMA Coordinator, it indicates that the evaluation process with a mindset to develop future, it says develop staff competencies to provide excellent service and oversees the annual evaluation process with a mindset to develop future department leaders. I thought that stance was interesting in that the questions when we were meeting, and again, excuse me if I'm overstepping what was discussed in executive session, that it was very important for us to outline details required, wanted, desired of a police chief so that our current staff could arrive to those desires. And what I read here is that it oversees the annual evaluation process, which at the time of our meeting, there was no annual evaluation process. So how do we develop staff competencies to provide excellent service and oversee the annual evaluation process? Is that going to be a new process, a process that is going to be created? And then with a mindset to develop future departmental leaders, the mindset in my eyes is subjective. And there needs to be more substantial language around what that would look like. Those are just little intricacies that we were asking for as a board to help us understand where we are and where we're headed.
A couple of things. With regard to what you read from the job description, that would be the job of the appointee. It's not a job of the village board. Village board, according, as I mentioned to Trustee Mustafa, the village board creates the position, but in terms of conduct, there is that personnel conduct, personnel training would be managed by the person filling that position. It's not something the board should get into. You also mentioned the police commission, and maybe I didn't understand it. The police commission would have had a part of this. That, again, is not a role at all of the police commission. They are very important, very instrumental in all new hires of police officers, all appointments of police officers, with the exception of the chief of police. And the chief of police, by our code, chooses the deputy. So that the line item is that this board just sets the positions, and in terms of the actual responsibility, as you read in the job description, would be the obligation of the individual fulfilling that position, not something for the board to participate in annual evaluations of personnel.
Sure, and I understand that, and I'm not suggesting that the board or the village manager per se would be the one overseeing the development of staff competencies. However, we were told that these items would be drawn out and with a mindset to develop future departmental leaders. That mindset is, again, subjective. I don't see how that could be a formative opportunity with a mindset.
We did not discuss creating a list for the department director. That's way outside of our lane. That's the job of the director, working with their staff folks to come up with that rubric and that evaluation process.
Call it slightly differently. And as it pertains to the commission, this is not a hire for a police chief directly. So if you could explain and elaborate.
This is the appointment currently. The current appointment is as a department head. Has nothing to do with the Board of Police and Fire Commissioners.
Okay.
With
But the
regard-
position is under the police department.
Doesn't matter. It's still a staff position, not the appointment of police officer. And then once the appointment becomes, the subject of the appointment is the chief of police, that according to our code as well as state law would be an appointment by the mayor with the advice and consent of the board.
Okay. One second while I go through my notes. And I did want to go back, excuse me, to Mr. Estelle and say that there was a conversation that was brought to the village board, and there was a conversation that stated in terms of how I became to know about your appointment and my husband's involvement with the process. And Mr. Estelle, before today's meeting, have you and I ever discussed or talked anything about this appointment? So, what part of that?
Mr. Estelle is not interviewing today to put him on the spot that way. And to ask him for a question, it doesn't even pertain to the position. Understanding the question as I do, I don't think that's an appropriate position, an appropriate question from your position as trustee. It's absolutely out of order. There's no relevance to this subject before us.
There was an
you're wearing out of the line, the appropriate costume when you talk about something that was discussed in the executive session.
One moment. Given my inability to go further into conversation, I will say something that I did say in executive session that I am going to state here. There were some things that were stated in executive session, and based on the inaccuracies of that information, that were founded to be untrue. I stated that I did not we are arriving at this conversation, I believe that the residents are expecting more from us as a board. They are expecting transparency. They're expecting honesty. They're expecting us to be able to relate to them as our neighbors. And somehow, for whatever reason, we have gotten away from being transparent, from being honest. And it is pitting people, good people, against each other unnecessarily. We cannot ruin people's reputation. We cannot be anything but honorable of the people who come before us, to listen to them, to honor them, and to respect them at all times. So, Mr. Estelle, I again respect the fact that you threw your hat in the ring to apply for this position, that you are someone with integrity. And I say that because I know the truth. And I respect the fact that you're still standing. My prayer is that we continue to respect people, to uplift people in our community, the people that we do business with, our neighbors, and we put ourselves and each other. We treat each other like we would want someone to treat us. And so if I can just shake your hand, and given that everything that we know that I can't say, I respect you.
Thank you so much. Village Manager Wachtel, would you like to address what he can and cannot do, the chief's job position versus this Director of Public Services and EMA coordinator position?
Certainly. The position description for Director of Police Services nearly mirrors our Chief of Police job description. As mentioned, the only
Trustee Bradley Scott, do you have any other comments you'd like to add?
No, I do not at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett?
Thank you. So I'm going to just be as candid as I possibly can. And there's a bunch here that I feel like I need to talk about. Usually I take time to really write things down, think it through so that it's very clear. So I apologize if in my candidness I'm not as clear as I would like to be. Let me start just by saying I lived in the village of Flossmoor since 2010 and was elected in the last cycle. The reason I chose to run for office was because my family, my children, have benefited from living in this village, and I felt a responsibility to give back. That has never changed. Therefore, everything that I make a decision on while I sit in this chair, I'm making as a father, I'm making as a husband, I'm making as a neighbor, I'm making as a resident of Flossmoor first and only. I have no allegiance to any person up here at all. My allegiance is to the village of Flossmoor. It always has been, it always will be. You can talk to numerous individuals who have approached me with assistance and help, questions about what they can do to get things done, and I've done everything that I possibly can to go out of my way to do that. Because my job, as I see, as I've been elected, is to help as best I can. There have been questions that have been asked tonight, and if it would have been asked directly of me, I could have told you. I was not directly asked, I was not asked, I was not called, hey, what's your vote going to be? I got to know. That did not happen. If I'd been asked of that, I could have told you that. And I agree that we do have to protect the integrity of individuals and the reputations of individuals. So to ask a question without the ability of someone to answer it, or having been able to get the answer to that question had you asked, then you would have known. It's insulting. We had a conversation for more than an hour yesterday. You could ask me easily then. I'm speaking. I'm not giving my time right now. I am not giving my time right now. I understand I'm still speaking. So in this situation, I'm very frustrated. I'm very frustrated because I feel like I know conversations that we had in executive session that I cannot talk about. There are discussions that we had through executive sessions about many of the questions that have come up through this entire process. And yes, are some of the details not finalized? They can't be because it's the role of the person coming in to do some of that. So yeah, there's things that can't. We talked about many aspects of this. So I'm frustrated tonight. And I apologize for that frustration coming out the way that it is. And I'm trying to work through all of this at the same time. So I'm just being real honest with you guys. I'm very candid here. The decisions that I make based on this, based on whether we do a viaduct project, whether we approve pothole patching, whether we do something with hidden gem, whatever it is, I'm trying to make the decisions that I feel are best for the village. If anyone has a concern about the way I'm voting, please come and talk to me because I want to have those conversations. When people approach me with that, I always have a conversation. If I missed one, I apologize, let me know, and I'll follow up with you. So in this current situation, be clear that however my vote goes on this or anything else is my vote. It's my vote. We have conversations as a board. We have conversations with staff. I often ask their insight. I asked many people this evening when I came in what their thoughts on another discussion item that we have this morning. I'm not someone's puppet. If I was a puppet, I wouldn't, it's not, what do I gain from it? I live here. My daughter's going to go through HF for the next 7 to 8 years. My kids are here. What do I benefit from having some backroom deal to get, what do I gain? I get $524 a month to do this job. There are weeks where I spend more than 30 hours on this job, trying to figure things out and research and ask questions immediately. What do I gain from it? Why would I do all this? To not play by the rules, to not go by the way that I'm charged to be. So if you want me out, vote me out. I'm going to run again, but if you want me out, if you don't feel like I'm serving the village, then vote me out. But I am telling you, while I am here, I am doing what I believe is best for the village. And that's it. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I don't do shenanigans. I'm not a dishonest person. It's not who I am. So it's difficult to be up here and have those things constantly questioned and being told that I'm racist and everything else that has gone along with so. And I get it. I understand. I understand there are a lot of people who don't know me, and there's a visual aspect that they get it. I understand. But it's not who I am. So I apologize for offense. The way I've talked tonight has probably caused something. I apologize for that. I'm just trying to be human here. I'm trying to be real. I'm trying to make sure people understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to be, not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a good citizen, good representative, someone who's representing the village well. I hope that when my time here is done, whether it's another 6 months or another 16 years, that people are confident that I've done it. So, I apologize. In this current situation, I don't have any further questions about what's before us tonight. I did receive everything at the same time that everyone on the board has gotten it. Things are pretty clear to me. I did have requests of village staff that, which I cannot direct village staff, but I requested, if at all possible, to make sure that there was a lot of clarity moving forward for staff in the police department. I've said I don't want to be showing up. I'm confident in the conversations that I've had with village staff that is part of the plan moving forward, but there's a timeline that has to follow. And I don't know police, I'm not a police officer, I'm a property inspector, sailing captain, that's what I know. Really good at that stuff, but I don't know police. It'd be ludicrous for me to sit here and think that I can figure out what that should look like. So part of the job description here, and part of the role, and part of the qualifications of Carl Estelle is that he has to figure that out, and I understand that. I've had some conversations. I won't go into detail here because I don't think it's appropriate. But I'm confident that those things there's a plan for that to happen. That's going to be happening going forward. This is not a perfect situation. I acknowledge that. We all have had that conversation as a board. This is not a perfect situation. I believe with where we are right now, and people can disagree with me, and I'm okay with disagreement. I really am. I believe that this is the best way to move forward for our police department as a whole in the future, as well as right now. So that's where I stand on it. And if I'm wrong, I'll look back and I'll own it. I'll take it. I'll say I was wrong. I've got no problem with it. But where I stand right now, and moving forward, I believe that this is the best way for us to move forward with the resources that we have, the time that we have, and where we're at as a village and police department. So, I'm one of 6. That's where I stand. I just wanted to be clear on a few of those things to make sure that people understood where I'm coming from, but also where I stand on the issues.
Thank you, Trustee Daggett. Trustee Driscoll.
Mike, the actual title of the reason tonight is Director Candidate Estelle. So that'd be great. Welcome to Flossmoor. As you can see, we've been through some turmoil on some of these issues. As a part of the community, I want to apologize for being subject to attacks on social media without even being on the job for day one. Some of those so-called experts do not really have any expertise in this, and certainly don't know our review of your record with you, and our conversations we had with you. I'll say this, I know a little bit about police chiefs. In my role as a municipal hearing officer, I've probably worked with 10 or 15 different ones over the years. I've represented municipalities for over 30 years. I've been with that in a lot of interaction with various police chiefs throughout Illinois. Recently now I represent police and fire personnel in employment matters, and as well as the Illinois State Police. And your resume, quite frankly, is the most unique and strong resume I've seen for a person in this position. A combination of your police work, in Oakland, in East Palo Alto, combined with DEA, and your continued services up here with the city colleges, in and of itself would be enough. Yet you also bring all this administrative knowledge as a manager, as a village manager. It's kind of a perfect storm of qualifications. And I have no reservations about moving forward with the plan that, to my recollection, was unanimously that this particular two-part process was 100% agreed to by everybody here on this board in executive session. So that's my position. I wish it were easier circumstances, but that's the hand we're dealt. But I have no doubt you'd be an excellent addition to our Flossmoor police family.
Thank you, Trustee Lofton.
I'll be as brief as Trustee Driscoll. But for clarity, we are here to consider the position of Director of Police Services. I took the time to look at the overview and the things that are being requested. I believe it's fitting for the time that we're in now. And I believe it covers the leadership role in the police department. Having said that, I've also taken the time to look at Carl Estelle. I looked at his background, and quite frankly, I found many things that he had done on the internet. We all can look at that ourselves. I think he was outstanding. I think he was very brave, very bright, and very strong police leader. That's what we're looking for here. He's done a lot of things in the administrative wing of police work. Can't take that away from him, it's real. While he hasn't walked the beat in 10 years, he put 30 years of his life into protecting people and administering police work. He's worked in Chicago with city colleges as a police security administrator, a leader. I also took the time to get some background on what he's doing now in Country Club Hills as a city administrator, which, by the way, is another attribute. He knows city government, he knows municipal government, the police department reports to him, fire department reports to him, and everything else that goes on, including fantastic entertainment shows that go on the weekend, major productions, which we don't have here, but he manages that as well. I talked with Mayor Ford just for a few minutes, just to get a picture of who is Carl Estelle to you. He thinks quite highly of him. He would stand on the table and say, "That's my man." Those are the words he gave me. He's a good leader. I also learned that he is a people person. Not only is he a good leader, but he knows people. He's real.
He's right there. I think he can serve us well in whatever capacity we put him. And I'll stop right there because you hear more from him and about him, I hope, very shortly. But let me assure all of you that until such time as the mayor appoints a police chief, period, we are in good hands with Keith Taylor and Tim Phillips. And they're right there. You can count on them. If you don't feel safe, I want to.
Thank you. Trustee Richards?
I've always said that, people don't move to Flossmoor because they hate it or we run it poorly. We don't. We run this village really well. And there have been some disparaging things that have been said to the commander and to the assistant chief. It's not about you. You guys are knowledgeable, hardworking, and you're a part of the family here in Flossmoor. But I believe you've been kept apprised about what we're doing. Part of Carl's role is a mentoring role. And let's face it, anytime you can gain knowledge, that's a good thing. So, it's a progression. I heard us being accused of being dishonest. And I also heard that we were, or somehow someone suspects there's collusion in the vote. I'm flabbergasted by that. I've never heard such a thing. And quite frankly, I'm insulted. I voted for you, Joni. I voted for you, Roz, and I supported you both. And the things that you guys have thrown out here is just ridiculous. It's true. Mr. Estelle has been thoroughly vetted. And I'm sure of one thing, that a police chief cannot exist without being a good manager. You can be a lot of things, but if you can't be a manager and run the department, you can't be a police chief. And Mr. Estelle has done that. He's not only run a police department, he's become a village manager, which is a complicated position. Like George said, he runs the police and fire department. And I hear so much out there. I hear, these meetings. Everyone's an expert at everything, but no one's presented their credentials. Bridget Wachtel has dealt with more police and fire chiefs, more FOP negotiations, and more police departments and fire departments than anyone in this room. And I grant it, she's forgotten more than I know about, and I've been around for a while and know a few things. So I have complete faith in their ability to, write the description and execute it. And I have complete faith in Mr. Estelle's ability. I think you're going to be a wonderful addition to our community. And I think you're going to do a great job. And you know what? It's going to pay dividends in the future. And, God bless you and good luck.
Thank you so much. Clerk Lugano, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa. No. Trustee Bradley Scott. No. Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the consideration of the approval of the proposal with Quinlan Security Systems for the Village Camera Project? Thank you so much. And I'd like to welcome Acting Chief Taylor and Assistant Village Manager Jonathan Bogue to present.
Good evening, trustees. Chief Taylor and I are here tonight to talk about approval of the proposal with Quinlan Security Systems for the Village Camera Project. Quinlan themselves are here too to answer questions that you may have about this camera project as well. So a little background on this before we get into why we're here today and what we're asking for. As the village has been working on a solution to replace our teaching video surveillance system within our campuses. This has been deferred by multiple years, budget years, and we wanted to move, we're in the process of moving this forward. Earlier this year, you threw out a bid that was over cost by quite some quite some, and we went back and forth on that item. This solution we're talking about, and the solution that we put out originally, to deal with looking for cameras to also be able to watch our village parking lots as well as our downtown campus. So how we got to this point is myself and our IT provider, Pressing Solutions, started discussing about how we could restart this camera project, and they connected us with Quinlan Securities. Chief Taylor and I met with Quinlan, and they did a security analysis of our facilities, provided us proposals for installing cameras throughout the village campuses and our own downtown area. It was originally kind of just an assessment to start looking what we wanted to do, and we got some good references from both other municipalities who used them before, including South Island, Lincolnwood, where I was from before, Knox, and Will County. The system is highly scalable, provides remote access, is user-friendly, and has no reoccurring license fees, which is very rare to find in a camera system. It's usually annual cost after annual cost. Importantly, the cost to implement their solution across the entire municipal campus in downtown is significantly lower than one bid that was submitted last year's RFP, making it more of a cost-effective choice. So we'll talk more about that. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Taylor to talk about the grants and the situation we're in.
Meeting, Madam Mayor, members of the board, just going to give you a brief overview of the particulars of the grant that we're discussing as part of the process that we hope to utilize remaining funds to purchase a camera system for our village complex. We were advised about the Illinois Attorney General's Organized Retail Crime Grant in August of 2023. The parameters of that grant provided funding that was to be used towards overtime for police details to combat organized retail crime, to use towards a real-time crime center for intelligence gathering. You could also use that money for training of officers to combat organized retail crime, and finally, to purchase equipment to combat that crime, such as license plate reader cameras and surveillance cameras. We, in conjunction with the village manager's office, felt it was best to utilize those funds for the license plate reader cameras, and we certainly are gracious that the board approved that purchasing agreement. $38,450 of that $85,000 grant award was utilized to purchase those flock LPRs and to cover the fees for the first year. We were notified about this grant, as I mentioned, on August 16th. We applied for it on August 29th, and the terms of that grant agreement were from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, which was yesterday, 2024. So that was the time frame we had to utilize that money in to avoid having to return. We were notified of the $85,000 grant award on October 6th, 2023, and we received the award funds on January 10th of 2024. So it just allowed us, within over 6 months, to expend those funds. That's a brief summary of the circumstances surrounding it.
So staff, based upon that, is recommending we forgo through going through an RFP process and move forward with Quinlan. We are making this request so that we can extend the grant money from the 2023 retail theft grant. With the $85,000 budget, the grant funds available, we would be able to move forward with the entire Village Hall campus, downtown business district, and our Village Home parking lots at the cost of $129,141. The proposal was attached to your packet. Now, one of the reasons why we're looking at this option particularly is that it's scalable. Which means we'd be able to do the Public Works Department at a later date. It also means that their current system, any cameras that we do have as Public Works can be ported into the system, and we'll be able to upgrade those at a later date. Even with the Public Works, if we put the Public Works campus on this list, the overall cost still would be $94,000 cheaper than the only bid that we got originally. So that's what we're asking for. So if the board is agreeable to this proposal, the board will need to waive the competitive bid process, approve the proposal from Quinlan Securities in the amount of $129,141, and approve the budget amendment amendment is because we have to account for the grant funds. And out of that 49,101, $46,550. I turn it over to the board for the questions or comments.
Thank you so much. And to be clear, what was the cost of the total of the original proposal that we tossed out?
Madam Mayor, the original, the only solar bid we received was $251,239.07.
Quite a bit more. All right, thank you. I'll start with questions from Trustee Driscoll.
No, it looks good. I understand exactly what you guys explained it perfectly. I'm going to go with the proposal as recommended.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Really had no questions, but I recognize because of the time frame here, we didn't have an opportunity to expose it to the bidders, and that's what I'm going to deal with that. There's a number of hard to bring it into the scope, but I don't like seeing grant dollars for all of these. Let's move forward, just consider that in the future.
Thank you. Trustee Mentors.
Who gets it on their phone so they can go back and forth?
So this is this is really interesting. We'll be able to do a couple things with this. So in the police department, for example, they have large screens by the records clerk who can see all the different videos, video cameras around the village. We can have it set for different permissions for different staff members. So for example, down in the building department, they can see cameras going downstairs and over the counter and those different things. So you'll be able to see on a computer those different things. So like Public Works will be able to see things by Public Works. The fire department will be able to see the bay and the outside doors. So the police department will help set those permissions and work with them to be able to do that.
I can see where it might be beneficial to be accessible by everyone in public safety or public works. How much extra was the public works?
Public Works was another $27,000.
Oh, okay. And then do these cameras go back and forth and in and out?
Yeah, there's each camera that for the different locations. There's 4 and 1 cameras. There's different things based on the location that you need. So part of that is in your package. It shows what kind of cameras.
Right. Do they? Okay. Okay. That's all I have. I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
I think it's admirable that you've moved ahead and keep the time frame, come close to it, but you're
trying.
So yes, I definitely am in agreement. We'll have Quinlan and we'll have Flock. We'll have 2 companies.
And they do different things. So the LPR readers do different things. So Flock is also an annual cost, and part of the reason why we went with Flock, just to step back a little bit on that, because all our neighboring companies use the same thing. So we get to share that information, so we're paying to use it anyway. So Chief Taylor made that recommendation. We were already spending $30,000 a year on it anyway. It's fine to pass the cameras around to be able to move forward with that. This is a completely different project, but what's cool about it, as we work through it, we can scale. If we're going to go into intersection cameras or something along those lines in the future, they'd be able to use the same things. We can import that into our system.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. Thank you for the participation.
Thank you so much. Trustee Brandon Scott.
I think it's always great to be kind of part of the digital age and have things at our fingertips. I'm curious, the bid was rejected previously, and we asked around and got one recommendation. Was that the only recommendation, or?
That was we received 2 recommendations of different companies that people work with in the area. One we brought on was to start by giving us kind of a security analysis of walking around the buildings and looking at our things a little bit deeper, because we wanted some experts outside of our own knowledge, cameras more and those different things as part of the process. And Chief and I worked together on that. And then the separate issue of this grant was unique, where it was given to the police department and awarded to the finance department up to December. So we didn't get the money until December, but the notification of the grant in October, and it wasn't a true year. So it kind of wasn't completely by surprise, but caught us a little off guard. reaching out, had to expect it at this time. So we try to expedite and move this through so we can use those grant monies, because if we don't approve it, then we would have to give those grant monies back. Doesn't mean that we're not applying for the grant again, because Chief Taylor already has submitted a new grant for next year, but that doesn't ensure that we'll get it. So we never want to give away money if we can use it.
Sure, so I was just trying to figure out why, we would normally do an RFP, we were afraid to do another RFP because we were afraid that the bids may come in.
No, we just didn't have time to be able to do an RFP process and to be able to use this grant. So because the plan was to go with an RFP to base the security analysis and do an RFP process, but we realized that grant money was expiring, and this solution is able to use that grant money now instead of letting it expire.
Sure. So the neighbors that use the flock cameras, do they also use this technology?
Does South Holland use flock? I know Lincoln would use flock, sure.
She's asking about Quinlan.
So I'm asking if we were basing it kind of on our neighbors and what they're doing. Were there not enough partners to ask for additional usage companies, recommendations, so that we could have also, I heard the two that you're talking about, but we didn't have to do our research on our own to find them? Were there any other neighboring towns or people that we could have also asked?
Yes, there's always more video companies, that we could have asked. We started looking at different municipalities, but we were starting with the security analysis. And then the reason why we brought this urgently is because of those funds. Normally, we would have done an RFP process and had more individuals done on this process.
Just trying to see if we could have gotten into a competitive analysis.
Thank you, Trustee Dagger.
I thank you guys for putting the hard work on this, and anytime we can grab the grant, please. I had a couple of questions, maybe the gentleman from Quinlan will be able to assist with this as well, just about the coverage of the cameras in the downtown Flossmoor area.
Yeah.
So I know you guys did a whole evaluation of it through. The two questions I have, so the panoramic camera on the library, when it pans out, does that come all the way 180 degrees? Is that a 180 degree swing? Okay. Now, is that movable or no?
Because the modern day camera now has multiple heads.
If you want to talk through, that's fine, sorry.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Quinlan?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. The cameras that we're using now, the old style cameras were removable pan-tilt tubes. In this day and age, we use multiple head cameras, one Cat 6. We have four cameras in one. So it can see 360, it can 380. It does a multitude of things. The idea is to have as much pixel coverage as you can in all areas, opposed to having cameras that move and maybe they're in the wrong place at one time.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is there any coverage in the system that we have now that would cover the library parking lot? Because I know we have a little bit of commuter parking sometimes that happens there, but then also the library. And it looks like we're using their building for the recorder and the camera and a couple of wireless boxes, but was there any discussion about using covering the parking lot?
We did not, but I'm pretty sure the library, just like their front camera, they have their own small camera system.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure they have some coverage in the back of their theirs. We will be working with the library on obviously placing this as well as our downtown areas. They have their own system.
Yeah, they have their own system. Okay, great. So then the last question I have about placement is, so the buildings on Sterling, when you go to the back of them, all of those stores and restaurants have back exits, and there's always people taking garbage out late at night. There's also some residents that park back there, and it's kind of out of the way. Was there ever any conversation about putting a camera on the corner in the back of that?
So what we're starting with is the village-owned properties. So it's the scalability question.
Okay.
So part of this is as we move toward the future, we can always add cameras, especially because that server that will be placed there will be able to be expandable. So if we wanted to add more cameras to that area, we'll be able to.
Because it looked like we're putting equipment on the corner of that building. That's why I was whether there could be cameras how long does it take to, once we give it a go, when is the stuff up and live from the time you start the project? How long does it take to get it up and running?
From the time that we get the contract and make do the order could take 4 weeks or something in that area. And once we're there to deploy the system, it could take another 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, great. I think that's all I've got. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Assistant Village Manager Vogt, there's a service and maintenance line item on all of these proposals. What's going
So
on
the
with that?
service and maintenance, that's an optional line item. That's something we'll discuss more, but at this time, we're not recommending moving forward with that. So the licensing fees are for the life of the cameras. So as far as the servers and those different things, those servers have warranties, and we'll talk more about this. The server specifically is what we're worried about. As far as this contract, if the camera broke, we would get the camera fixed. Be great fix instead of having a warranty in one of the cameras is what staff is recommending at this time. So we are moving forward with that specific line cost.
Okay, great, thank you so much. If there are no other questions, Clerk will gavel, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Mustafa? Yes. Trustee Riley Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Daggett?
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll?
Yes.
Trustee Lofton?
Yes.
Trustee Mitros?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation too. Next item is a discussion item, and we are re-welcoming Assistant Village Manager Jonathan Vogt here to discuss a business registration program for the Village of Flossmoor. And this is just to get trustees' initial feedback and thoughts on the program. And pardon the delay. I know it's getting late.
Today we're set for discussion on business registration. This was something that came up during the budget process. Today, besides myself, as well as Ian, and our fire chief, Bob Kopek, are here to answer questions that you may bring up relating to business registration. Flossmoor currently has no business license or registration requirement. We are the only municipality in the area without it. There's multiple reasons to consider business registration. Assuring businesses are compliant with zoning, building, and fire codes, build awareness in village businesses, ensure code compliance inspections are being completed, help identify businesses, vacancies, and support marketing efforts. So some villages around us also have different fees for fire inspections as well. Village of Flossmoor does not have fire inspection fees, nor do we have business registration fees. Requests from businesses for documentation purposes. There's often grants and different things that people request, businesses request our proof of business registration. Since we don't have one, we can't provide it. The research we did was a Southern Community Survey. All had a business registration or licensing program. Kathy could probably answer more of this, but as far as non-home rule communities can do registration and not licensing at this time. The majority had fees based upon their square footage of their business. So sometimes in two different categories, small businesses would have one price, larger footprints would have another. Some had flat fees, others had a fee based on business types. Those were less common. We're recommending fees based on square footage between $100 to $200 annually. program would be based on the building and zoning department, would be based out of the building and zoning department. It would be supported by the fire department and managed by the manager's office as well. So they would help with implementation, taking payments online, and doing a business registration system that way. Needs for this would also have to cover, the cost for this would cover the module for BSNA and staff time. So BSNA is our financial software. There's a module built into that we'd have to pay for, not at an expensive cost, but that way we can do all of this online and keep that registration safe and accessible. The proposed rollout would be after this discussion, we bring a formal vote to the village board at a later meeting. The goal would be to have this up and running by January 1st. At this time, I turn it over to the village board for questions, comments, and discussion.
Thank you so much. So are you, just to be clear, are you proposing fire inspection fees also, or
No.
would this cover fire inspection fees?
At this time, it would be all in one. So it would be, we wouldn't charge two separate costs at this time, but we're recommending just one business registration cost. Now, there's some conversation that Chief Kopak could talk about return costs. What I mean by that, if there's a violation of the fire code, oftentimes they have the fire inspector go back there. I think from our conversations, Chief Kopak said the first callback he would feel would still be under the same cost. After one additional after that time, we may consider bringing a recommendation for a fee at that point. Because if it's like, Chief Kopak, do you want to weigh in on this one of how you would recommend this?
Yeah, so currently we do inspect every business within the village, at least annually, and we collect no fee for that. So with the registration program that's before us, we're not looking specifically for the fire fee. We're looking to build a database of the businesses doing business within the village. So currently, right now, we actually have had businesses that we found through the fire inspection program that we really didn't know were even operating within the community because they didn't require a building permit or some type of a permit issued through the building department. So as the inspectors go out, we're actually finding some businesses that are doing business in town, which isn't illegal within our community, but it really puts us in a bad position, not knowing what businesses are really in the community, what are they storing in these. We're responsible for pre-plans in these facilities. We also have to inspect the facility. So when we discussed the program, we weren't looking to really recoup a fee specific to the fire inspection, but we did discuss down the road after this was moving a little further that if we're returning for the third or fourth violation because it's not being resolved, we're just looking for compliance, is that maybe we have to potentially issue a fee only because we keep going back for non-compliance. But in this initial proposal, we're not looking for any fee related to violations at this point, specific to the registration.
That seems incredibly unsafe, not knowing who all of the operators are, especially if there's a disaster. I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly what I want to address. My experience is, if you're home ruled, you could have a real license. If you're home ruled, you could have a real licensing program, which is such a benefit to communities, I can't tell you. To have a registration isn't as good because we can't pull a license, but the information a registration gives you, who owns the business in an emergency, we have no way of knowing to call you if your building's on fire because it's a Sunday night at midnight. We have no information about who should be in charge. If there is someone, you call the police, we go to your place, I say, I own this place. How the heck do we know that you are in fact who you say you are? Business registration has so many benefits to it. There's a third benefit. You just admitted, as we all know, that we have businesses in this town we do not know. How do we know some of our businesses couldn't provide us with some of the materials and services that we need, that we would be much happier doing business with them? We don't know they exist.
I'll give you an example of that, a business that we've discovered. I just
Scott can kind of fill in on his own Scott check on this.
I just ran across one today at Flossmoor Commons.
Okay.
A new clothing store moved in, and they didn't, not that it's a non-permitted use, but they didn't bother to come in or call, or because there's no permit needed for building or anything like that, so.
So they made no changes? No.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they just opened business and, yeah.
Did you ask about the fee structure in other villages?
Yeah, so that was based on square footage, flat fee, or business type. Those were the three that we looked at, and the square footage was having two different lanes for smaller and larger businesses, the most common.
And what about the amount?
Between $100 and $200 is pretty common for business registration comparatively to licensing. So that seemed to be very common in our.
So we're not charging something that's out of line?
It's to pay for the program.
Right.
So that's pay for the program for both staff time and the software.
Right, thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Thanks for the information and the work on that. As Attorney Orr suggested, we have businesses that do things that may support your business. You didn't realize she was an economic development attorney also. But clearly, that is one of the keys to business development. When you can do business, not having to go to California, you can do it right in your own community. That's important. It's important for us to know who our businesses are. And as far as the safety aspect of it, how important is that to have a fire inspection to tell you where you might have a hazard in your business? I thoroughly approve of something like this.
I did not mention this as part of the presentation too. There's the safety aspect is the primary thing. The secondary thing that we could also talk about that we've seen other municipalities who use our GIS program do is list the commercial properties that we know now are available through this program by process of A, elimination, or B, knowing that all the business owners know commercial properties, but being able to list those vacancies as right on the map of our GIS system. So that could be also to bring businesses in using some of the technology we use from this data that we get.
Thank you so much. Trustee Mitros.
I agree with George. I think it's something we probably need. I have a question though. A lot of communities, they have licenses for a year. Your plumber can't do work in town unless it's licensed. Is that something that we're talking about here also? Or your lawn service guy, they can't, unless they have a license to work in the town, they're usually about $100.
We can't do that because we're not home.
Okay. That answers it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Gustavo.
So can you expand the description of what a business is? What's included in that category?
So, Scott, do you want to start by what a business would be described as for that category? So,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was just asking for more fullness, more description of what we consider a business.
Any commercial entity that does business in town, with the exception of home businesses. So it wouldn't include home occupations.
Okay, so in a living room, in a basement, in a bedroom?
It would not include a home occupation, only commercial business with an address, a commercial address.
So if a person had a residential address for a business, but it wasn't their home?
If it wasn't their home?
Yeah, like for instance, they rented a condo or they had a rental space, but it's a residential rental space.
That wouldn't be considered a commercial space because you wouldn't have a fire inspection of a space like that.
You're not allowed to do that because it's zone residential. You
well,
can't have a business.
Like if you had two residences though, it would count, right? Like so,
no,
it would just be
if
like
it's zone residential, it's zone residential, and you can't run a business.
I'm not trying to disclose anybody doing something you're not supposed to. What is?
Yeah, no. If it's a home occupation, you can do it in residential. If it's not a home occupation, you cannot do it on residential property. So.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Bradley Scott.
I think the business registration definitely is a good Can you identify approximately how many businesses are under the 5,000 square feet and over the 5,000?
I think we looked at about 250 businesses total as part of this from the fire list that we were looking at originally, as we were basing on. I think the larger ones are easier to identify, right?
Yes, well, you're obviously talking about Meyer. Possibly CVS is probably over 5,000 square feet. The dollar stores over 5,000 square feet. There's only a handful that are over 5,000 square feet. So not a lot.
And since this is an annual process, where do you start? Or are you asking for the businesses to come to you?
So we would start with the fire list that we currently have. So that's a list that is probably the most accurate and can check it against the business list of known businesses that we already have as well in the building department, and that's where we'd start. The idea to have this conversation or start moving on this is there would be a couple of things we have to put in place, including software, including how we're going to mailings, all those different things that we'll do to bring awareness to our business community and get these things in place. So there's an education piece. There's the reasons why we share this with the NBA. We would do all those things in the process if this is how we're moving forward. But we definitely want to give it enough time so we can make sure businesses have time to be compliant.
Starting with the fire list and moving about, since some of the businesses are renting space from another entity, such as Flossmoor Commons, would you make the landlord responsible for having this be part of their process so that no one falls off the radar when a new tenant moves in?
We would
Do we have a requirement?
That's a good question.
I think it should be. I think the landlord should be responsible for notifying their future tenants that they are required to register.
We're not registering the property owner, we're registering
The business, right?
Well, that would be a great encouragement. That would help the village out a great deal for the day rental.
And if the clothing store that you mentioned, it was another entity initially, so when a new business comes in, that particular address may get more than an annual inspection because of the new business coming in, or is it just annually as long as they don't require any building and zoning that they would not have to do anything additional?
Depending on if there's no modifications, then probably nothing different. If fire did an inspection of the business and there was nothing wrong, then we would want fire inspection. So it would only be one if there was no reason to have it, correct?
Yeah, so what we would like to be able to do is get in and inspect the business before we issue that occupancy or registration, just to ensure everything meets code. And at that time, we get owner information, the Knox box key, alarm information, all these things we're trying to gather for our database to give to the dispatch center, and then providing it's the same occupancy type, it should be a quick walkthrough, and we should be out there within less than 5 to 10 minutes.
Would that particular business pay the $100?
So it would be,
Or
if
$200.
you own the business and then you left, right, that would be the 100, and then I come in and open the business in the same square footage, I now have to register the business with the village for another $100.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Trustee Dagan.
Yeah, I have a few questions. I was able to talk to a couple of you guys beforehand, took some of those questions off, so it won't be as long. So we do have a very interesting business model here in Flossmoor with the shops on Sterling, where they're all in 150 to 300 square foot spaces. So it would be nice if we could find a way, because I know their margins, because I used to have a little office in there, but the margins are not great. So if we could find a way, since it's one 5,000 square foot space, and you wouldn't, it's the space, the 5,000 square space is more of the space that we're worried about. But all those businesses also should register. It would be great if we can find some solution for that, just as we're going through things. So that's just a, you know, comment on it.
Yeah, that's something we can pick up.
Yeah. So here's a question for Kathy that I'm thinking about. Can we deny a permit of a contractor who's done work in the village, who's been how would I say it? Who's not been responsible or?
Yes.
Okay. And that can just be done through the building.
Bidding, yeah. By law, you're supposed to award to the lowest responsible bidder.
No, what I'm asking is, I'm Joe Shop owner downtown.
Yeah.
And I hire a contractor to come in, and it's contractor XYZ contracting. And they come over and Scott goes, no, these guys have had numerous violations on every project they've been here. Can we deny their permit?
No.
If they're licensed, they get to do it. All right, that's a bummer.
It would be, I mean, the mess up would be between the property owner that's hired.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, let me get to these others. So here, I'll cut it short. My big thing is two things. I think it's needed. I think it's necessary. It just makes sense. And I'm pretty confident that both of these things will be accomplished with the plan that you guys are coming up with. But my concern is, number one, that we don't view this as an income producing thing, which in talking with you guys, that's not what it is. That this is just to cover the cost of the extra manpower, but also talking with Scott, he felt like it wasn't going to be taxing on any of our current staff. So those are my two things, just making sure that we're not, because if you look at it as an income producing thing, then later you go, oh, where can we get some, we can raise the fees on this. I just don't want to do that to our businesses. But everyone I talk to, it sounds like that's absolutely not what we're trying to do. This isn't a revenue building thing, it's to pay for the cost of it. And done right, it can be a great tool. And then just making sure that we're not taxing our staff. So as we build it, we can do those things, that'd be great. And if we can find some maybe cost-saving solution for the shops on Sterling type of businesses, that'd be awesome.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much, Trustee Driscoll.
Yeah, obviously I agree. Sure, I can't remember if it wasn't done years ago. I think I did bring this up at some point a long time ago. It was the shadow of our former village attorney, and I did like, so everything full speed ahead by January 1st is what we want to do now.
Yeah, we're not looking for direction today, but that's what that would be our goal, is to make this an annual fee, and then we hopefully build January 1st.
100% for that. I just want to go back and revisit my arguments with village attorney, or this chief keeps doing this occupancy type, which we can't do for a non-home rule town, right, Kathy?
Occupancy is a fire code matter. So as you well know, he goes in and finds the fire code. That would be the citation.
So let me clarify. He's saying occupancy like that. You're saying for a non-home rule town, we can't impose a penalty on not registering the business.
Correct.
And I disagree. I believe we can. I believe most communities do that. And I think as we did, we looked at that, there's about 140 communities in Illinois that do that same thing. They're non-home rule communities. And I think at this point, we should look into that way in the future. Keep the plan you got now, by January 1st. But maybe we revisit that at some point.
No, there are specific businesses that non-home rule can, in fact, license. Tattoo parlors. We can also license places of eating because of the fact that it's a health issue here. I can get the list. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have any of the ones that are specifically authorized.
I think you can go out. We'll leave that one for another day. It doesn't really go into it tonight, but at some point maybe we'll revisit the issue.
Thank you so much, Trustee Mustafa.
Just give a question for what you said about consolidating. Can we still create the database and make sure we have the individual business information if we would do a consolidation?
As far as if you were
What was Gary talking
for
about?
the shop on Sterling type. Yeah, we still may want each one of those owners on a registration, no matter what the payment portion would be, just because we want that information in an emergency happening.
That was the best advantage of doing this.
Yes.
It's really, I understand what you're saying, it's less than $10 a month. You know.
Yeah, I understand that. At the same time, if we're only going to inspect that building once, maybe we give them a discount because of the inspection time from the fire department. You know, however you guys figure it out. If you can make that happen, great. I do understand it's a small amount that we could save them if we could. That's all. I'm not telling you you have to do it. It would be great if we could. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? All right, we do not need to go into executive session tonight, so we will open up for our discussion. Any other business, trustee Scott?
No, I have another business, thank you.
Thank you, trustee Brenda Scott.
Well, I want to say two things. The first comment I want to say to trustee Mike Schwartz, I have enjoyed my time on the board. I believe that I am operating with the residents' best interests at heart, and my comments were specifically based on what I have seen, what has been said to me, and you were in the room when it was said. So I specifically, tonight, I'm talking about specific matters. So your comment to me in terms of saying that you disagree in terms of the honesty that I was speaking about, that was a real live situation that you were a part of. So those are the types of things that I'm talking about. So I wanted to address that with you because I think that I have been very supportive of our community. We live in a great town, and with a few minor adjustments, I have very few complaints about what's going on. I think we do a fantastic job, generally speaking. But I did want to offer an opportunity when there is a situation when there is a divided board and opinions and processes could be done better. That observation and input is an opportunity for us to sit back as a board and take heed of that opportunity and see how we can do things differently and better. To say that we are comfortable with the way things are, I think that limits our opportunity of growth and development. We are, in my opinion, a forward-thinking town, and we should always challenge ourselves to be better. With that being said, given how we have been divided on some opportunity areas, I think it would be very instrumental for us to take in an opportunity to do a holistic review of our community as it pertains from the village staff, administration standpoint. This type of observation and this type of tool will allow us to see from many standpoints, from police, fire, the village manager's office, the other departments, how we are functioning as a village and how we can do better. With a 360 review, as trustee Mustafa mentioned, a 360 review will allow staff, past and present, to be able to give us some feedback on how we operate and our blind spots, if we see it as such, so that we can improve our functionality, that we take our most valuable resource, which is our human resources, and do the best we can. I think by not looking at opportunity areas, we're saying we're fine where we are and we don't need any room for growth. Looking at a tool like a 360, we'll be able to measure the entire agency and how we interact, and ultimately it will drive success. It will provide the competencies again and look and see where our challenges are and how we may face them. It will also provide a strategic opportunity to direct our future growth so that we're able to see where we'd like to go and create some strategies on how to get there. Part of our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan, has all of the opportunity areas that one would need to move forward, with the exception of that human capital aspect. So in terms of some things that I believe we can do better, it would be implementing these types of workforce initiatives to find a tool that is mutually beneficial for all stakeholders. So I hope that our board can take that into consideration so that we not only work on today, but tomorrow to continue to grow and build the community that we all know, love, and hope will be the community that will be able to sustain us for years to come. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. And if you have any ideas for specific programs, please bring them to us. Trustee Daggett.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to a couple people. I approached John this evening because I had a chance to go over to just kind of look at the progress of what's going on over at Heather Hill and look. I also had my inspector classes on, so there's no holes in the fence, I can tell you that. But just when I was driving in, I noticed that there's a ton of we've moved, I think he said, 250 trucks a day of dirt out of there, which is part of the process. But in doing that, it's put a lot of dirt onto the roadway. So I approached John and said, hey, is there anything we do? He's already talked to them about having street sweeping done before the holiday.
They clean it regularly.
Yeah,
They're out there.
and he's talked about doing even another level of it, just to clean it up. So I appreciate you being on top of that. And then also just with the 100-year celebration that we did with the baseball game, the girls team that I coached got a chance to be a part of that. They absolutely had a blast. But having the community out there, all the hard work that was done on that was fantastic. So that was a great time. Also, I just want to mention I appreciate the ability to have the discussion tonight about the the business registration. Yes, thank you. Well ahead of having an actual vote on it. I think that's very helpful, and I know we had some conversations about trying to do that more. So I appreciate us having the time to do that, to really look at it and consider. Now we can go out to the businesses and say, how do you feel about this? What are some things that would be, does this plan seem good? I think using the Flossmoor Business Association is a great resource and tool to get some feedback from them, but also to spec this out. And for me to even have time to think about it, I'll be like, okay, what other questions do I have 4 or 5 days from now, as I'm sure. So thank you for the opportunity for that. I really appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Driscoll.
No, I was just want to add to Gary's comments. Mayor, board, Bridget, Stephanie, if she's still here, did a fantastic job. Everybody did on celebration, and it was just a police, fire, public works, all the way around. It was a great evening, and everybody did an excellent job. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that as well. I thought the celebration was fantastic. It really showed off and celebrating our village's 100th birthday. It was a great job. I do applaud police, fire, John, and all the staff that put out so well.
Thank you. Trustee Mitros.
I want to also say the 100-year anniversary was really special. It was well thought out, and no figure against the fouls, right? But the next day, at the train station, the board sponsored the band. It was packed. I think it was Carolyn's biggest night. So thank you all, and know that they really appreciated it. It was a good time.
Thank you. Clerk Logabo. Village Attorney.
I said too much tonight.
Village Manager.
I'll just add to the praise and thank you for the June 20th event. I want to thank Jonathan and Stephanie and all the staff who worked on putting together one of our 3 new events this year, some of which won't repeat again, but this one was certainly very special, and everybody worked very hard to make it a seamless evening and a great finale with the drone show. Stephanie has worked very hard to receive sponsorship for this year's centennial events. Is she sitting over there? And Nicole, absolutely. Nicole and Stephanie have worked very hard at sponsorship for this year's event so that we were offsetting these costs to celebrate the village's 100th birthday.
In addition to the amazing work of our departments all working together to make it just a memorable night, I also want to thank our commissioners and all of our volunteers. Community Relations Commission was there in the beating hot sun. Our commission was there. Green Commission was there handing out Flossmoor, which kind of trees were they? Oak trees grown from Flossmoor nuts. So, what? Acorns. Okay. Anyway, it was just a really neat evening. Also want to point out and thank Alex Ooms from Flossmoor Fire Department. He helped with the car show. Officer David Levy with Flossmoor Police Department. He organized the grinders. And then Trustee Gary Daggett coaching the Hurricanes. Thanks for bringing your girls out. It was a treat to watch them play. And then last but not least, Karen Sutton over at Sutton Ford. She was incredible with her letting us use some of their beautiful cars. Stop by today. Anyway, wanted to give you an update on economic development. It has been an incredibly busy month of June, meeting with 2 to 3 developers and interested business persons every single week. Last week was no different, even though it was packed. We met with 3 developers last week to talk about Flossmoor Road and Wilmer Road, and actually one today who is interested in Flossmoor Road. So that's been pretty exciting, and we will keep you up to date as more information becomes available. Rainbow Cone is opening on Wednesday morning, and trustees and clerk Galvo, you're invited to bring your children to that. If you do come, please be there by 10:30. We get to see your kids. And last, I have something really exciting to share. 4th of July for our bike parade, which starts at 10 a.m. at Parker Junior High. Get there as early as 9:15 to have a safety check done and to decorate your bike. But joining us in the center of town is an incredibly talented young lady, fresh off of Broadway. She represented the state of Illinois at the Jimmy competition last week in New York City. The Jimmys, for those of you who don't know, is the high school equivalent of the Tonys. And she just did an amazing job on the Broadway stage. She had a wonderful week leading up to it as well. So she was part of Urinetown, which was the top musical in the state of Illinois. And she just graduated from HF High School. And I called her mom last week and said, do you think you can get Jasmine to sing the national anthem? So we have a Broadway star, a budding Broadway star, fresh off of Broadway, and here to perform the national anthem on Wednesday morning. So please come out and support Jasmine. If there's nothing else, I'm going to ask for an adjournment. Thank you. All in favor?
I'm sorry to disrupt. I have a correction to make. When I looked at my notes, I said fence about the fence at Hatfield School, and it was the flags that were put out before June. The fire survey flags. So I have to correct myself. I said fence when I should have said flags. So I just wanted the notes to reflect that.
Thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a great evening and a great 4th of July, everybody.